Okay, hello everybody. I'm Kimberly Vanderwert, Director of World Awaits Academic Consulting, and I'm here today to share with you two more problems that I see international students encountering as they move through the application process. So, for those of you who are unfamiliar, again, I'm Kimberly Vanderwert, Director of World Awaits Academic Consulting, and I work now most frequently with international students to help them through the application process. In the past, I worked largely with people from the United States, but I have expanded. And that means what I do is I really help people move through this really confusing process. So I help them find schools, put together applications that are very specific to those institutions, help with letters of recommendation, essays, and then, at the end, once they've picked the school that they want to attend, then working through the visa process and then counseling them to help them be successful once they arrive in this new culture and new environment, academic environment. So that's a little bit about what I do, but let's get into the two problems that I want to talk about today. And so those two problems are one of a focus on applying to brand name schools. So those schools that are Ivy Leagues or are in some way very well known in a person's home country. And then the other thing I'm going to talk about is some late preparation or late test taking of those standardized exams that everyone needs to take in order to be admitted into an American institution. So to begin, let's talk about some students' emphasis on applying to and being accepted into Ivy League institutions or top tier institutions. So there's a little bit of a problem with this because, to begin, they're very, very challenging and very difficult to get into. And they, Harvard, for example, just this year only accepted 5% of their applicants. And I think Stanford did as well. So they're nearly impossible to get into. And then those students that are applying to those schools, they tend to really sort of put themselves into this box of what this ideal student is and what success means without maybe exploring a little bit more further about like who they are and what they're truly interested in. And then let's say those students do decide to put together this application and go to apply to these Ivy League institutions, then one of two things happens. They don't get in and they're crushed, and that then they're stuck with nothing else, to apply to. Or they do get in and maybe, not always, but maybe they find out that they're really not happy at that school because they went to that school strictly for ranking without considering other opportunities that are available to them or other factors that might tie into a school that they are interested in. So those can be some problems that international students face. And so I always encourage students to look at schools outside of this ranking that they're often consumed with. So there are other things to consider when looking at a school that you're interested in. So yes, you want to look at schools and you do want to have an idea of their ranking. That can be important and it can really help you figure out, like where you fit into the system. So like, can you get into that school and what are they looking for and things of that nature. But also, you want to look beyond the ranking of the school and you want to look at their individualized programs. You're there to study one thing, right? Like one topic. And so you want to make sure that that program is a good program and will be appropriately challenging for you. And so sometimes, for example, a school may be ranked 100th out of all of the schools, but they have like a really amazing political science program or whatever it is that you're interested in. So look at programs of study. And then also look at the location. Like, do you want to live in the north? Do you want it to be cold? Do you like the winter? Or do you want to live on the beach? Like, think about the location. And then all of these other things that schools can offer you outside of their ranking. And so that includes things like internship opportunities, career opportunities, like what are the percentage of students that find jobs once they graduate in your field of study, perhaps volunteer opportunities and things that will help to boost your resume by the time you go to graduate from the school. And then also, athletics or groups or organizations that you might want to become interest or become involved in. Those are really going to impact your happiness. And then, how do you study? Do you prefer to be in a smaller classroom environment, a larger classroom environment? How big of a campus do you want to be on? What sorts of students go to these particular schools? What sorts of creative outlets might you have at these schools? So there's a lot to consider outside of just ranking. And so I really, really encourage you to broaden your searching, your college searches, beyond just these brand name institutions. The fact of the matter is, if you're happy at a school, you're much more likely to be successful. So what college counselors like myself do is we tend to tier schools that are specific to the individual and their wants and needs in a school, as well as their credentials. And so this is what I encourage you to do is as you go through your own personal research, start classifying schools that you're interested in into 3 categories. And those 3 categories are called match, safety, and reach. And so a match school is a school that is everything that you want, academically, location, socially, has all of these things that you want. And that also you have a likely chance of getting into because of your credentials, so your grades and things of that nature, your background. So those are a match school. And then you also want to take into account your reach schools, so those schools that are maybe a little bit more competitive. Add some of those to your list and try to get in. Put some applications together and try to get into those more challenging schools. And then also you're going to want safety schools, and these are the schools that with your credentials you will most likely or definitely be accepted. And you want to have those schools just to be sure, just in case things don't work out with your match or your reach schools. So that's my recommendation to you. Start looking beyond the Ivy Leagues and the top tier schools and look at all of the other schools out there. There are amazing programs throughout the United States, and to focus on only those top tier schools is really doing yourself a disservice. There might be programs out there that are way better for you as an individual. So the next thing I want to talk about is preparation for the standardized exams. So that means for all international students, the TOEFL or the IELTS, and then for undergraduate students, ACT or SAT, graduate students, GRE, LSAT, or MCAT. A lot of times students come to me and we have, say, 3 to 8 months to prepare all of these applications, sometimes even less than that. And I find out that they haven't taken their standardized tests, or they haven't even started preparing for their standardized tests. And there's a couple of problems with this. First of all, students in the United States, those students who you're up against for these spots in these schools, they start planning for these tests really early. The ACT and the SAT students start planning for in like grade 9. They start taking some practice tests, and by grade 11, they are preparing heavily, and they take their very first ACT or SAT test in 11th grade. And this gives them a leg up because, if they don't do well the first time they take the test, or even the second or the third time, they can continue to take the test over and over again until they get a score that they need for the schools of their choice. So, when you come into the application process, if you haven't taken the test yet and you need to submit your application in a couple months, you might be stuck with that score and only that score to submit to the school. So that's the only chance that you have to take that test. And then also, it takes a really long time to prepare for these tests. So, when you look at IELTS and TOEFL, for example, certainly you want to be prepared for that test and get to know that test and become familiar with it and what's expected of you on that test. But, you also want to, in that time, be boosting your language skills, especially if when you take some practice tests, you see that you're maybe not getting a score that you need to get into the institution of your choice. And language, as you know, is a very challenging thing to learn and a very time-consuming thing to learn. So the sooner you can get started on that, the better. And the same does go for your other standardized exams. Give yourself the chance to really be prepared and really shine on those tests. And the other thing that I want to talk about is the SAT subject tests. So if you're applying to an undergraduate program and you don't have access to the advanced placement or international baccalaureate, so AP or IB classes, then I strongly encourage you to take the SAT subject tests. Or on the flip side, if you're applying to some institutions, they do require that you take the certain SAT subject tests. So it's something that you want to research and then also use to your advantage if you have the opportunity to take them. But the thing is, you need to take these tests also right away. So if you are taking, say, a calculus class and you want to take the SAT subject test in calculus, it's in your best interest to take that test right away, right when you're done with the class, while all of that information is still fresh in your mind. So that's my advice to you. Get started on your standardized exam preparation as soon as possible and sign up for tests far enough in advance so that you can take more than one test if need be. Okay, so that's what I have for you today. I will be back again next week with 2 more problems that I see international students making. After that, I am done with this portion of the things that I would like to cover with you guys, but by all means, please do reach out to me and email me and let me know how I can help you or what sorts of topics I can talk about in the future. Thank you and have a good day.